how did you build up from those early classes to get the necessary traction that you need that inevitably got you to iterative? Sorry.
Yeah. No, as I mentioned, it's a lot of bootstrapping. It's a lot of hard work. It's a lot of risk taking. So we did like a bunch of different types of classes and programs too. And sort of when it was time to talk to iterative, it was really a matter of painting it in a narrative that made sense, which is where we are at right now. And those guys like have a really, I think like what's special about hyper localized, I guess like institutions like iterative and like even what we're trying to build super hyper localized is that they know the specific problems that are happening in this region. And if you're able to repackage or like reinstate and build a narrative around, hey, these are the problems that are happening here, right? So it comes back to having that narrative, right? So it's team TAM traction. I think like for anyone like who really is like looking for anything, it's team. Who are you? Why are you the people to build this? The track, the TAM, like how big could this be? And then the traction, which is sort of like your evidence that this could work. So it's about packaging that well. Yeah.
No, at the end of the day, that's it. And again, in any accelerator, that's basically the holy grail.
Yeah.
But again, dozens and dozens, probably even hundreds of startups join these types of accelerators, but only select you got in. How did you? What are the things you think you did right that got you into Brian and Suken's radar? Because they probably say no to more people than they say yes to people.
Yeah. What did we do? Okay, I can give this like tip. So basically we had our first the first one-on-one with Sukan, sort of like getting to I think like the other thing is we applied ridiculously early. I think we applied like 5 months.
Oh wow.
I think like the deadline was yesterday or something like that, and we applied like 5 months earlier. Shout out to Martha, because Martha, my co-founder, was the one who got kind of pushed for that. So we had the initial interview, and right like off the bat, it could see it's like, hey, Sukan sent me a reply email. Hey, like I'm not sure what you guys are gonna be working on, like blah blah blah. You know, the usual like follow-up question stuff. And I think what really changed and like what other people tell me is like how I guess like we learned from our users and how we continue to learn from our users is the biggest. I assume. I mean, I don't know what they're thinking. I assume like learning from users and like being able to discover trends, be super data driven with the statistics. That I think like was the biggest thing that they sort of saw, right? Potential wise. And as a young founder, right, like unproven, like who am I, man? Like who am I to be excited into like this iterative thing? It's like you need to display like a really good potential for growth. And again, like how you do that is you have sort of like your narrative, what you've been doing, et cetera, et cetera. So that's what I would say, right? It's like you just learn from users, be super user focused, build something that people will actually use, build something people actually want. So yeah.
Got it. And specifically, in this team TAM traction, troika or triumvirate that you want to say, team is very easy to define. Again, who's your gang, right? And then traction also speaks for itself. But this is where people fuck it up most of the time. It's TAM. It's total addressable market, right? And how did you guys define your total addressable market? Though again, you guys were hyper focused on this type of niche, and majority of the time, most people either hyper focus, they undervalue their TAM, or they go, "Oh, everybody is our
yeah.
You're $1 billion market, and how come you're the only one who saw this, right?" But how did you guys define that on your own?
How do we define it? Yeah, so I think the interesting thing about time, right? It's really, as you said, it's really as much of art as it is science. And what you have, I think like my best advice for people doing their time is you have to be really clear on your assumptions. You know, who are the specific people you're targeting? How much will they actually pay? Why? Like it's just like honestly, it's the basics. Again, you can talk about like so many of the tactics, so many of like the financial models, discounted DCF, whatever. But at the end of the day, it's about like the assumptions you make and are those actually believable? Being able to identify a clear market segment, who you want to start with, right? Understanding the value proposition and how much they would be able to pay for it. It's the basics, right? And it's about like really transforming those basics into compelling digestible narrative that makes
Yeah.
sense.
All right, now let's talk about traction, because
Sure.
you had to hustle for that early traction,
Oh
and
man.
you can't get to iterative if you're just gonna dick around. Hearing what they had to do with ACAD Arena had to go through. When they
Yeah.
were delays on their end, they had to really compensate for that and catch up. For you
Yeah.
guys, how did you get that traction? Because at the end of the day, revenue is king in traction. I
Yeah.
don't care again what it is. If
Mm.
you join a startup or an accelerator like this, you can't just be like, yeah, I have these vanity metrics. Nobody gives a
Yeah.
shit about
Yeah.
that, right?
Yeah.
You need
What
to
matters
get the
is
metrics
revenue.
that matter.